Dane? What? Am I fat?
I tell you on a nearly constant basis that you're fat.
Okay, satire aside and jokes aside, do I look like I put on weight?
No.
Well, apparently I'm too fat for chips. Because I've never have you ever had somebody critique your basket at like Publix or a grocery store of your choosing?
No, I have been critiqued on the way I use the self checkout kiosk, though.
Interesting. So they were threatening you. They were saying that you were trying to steal stuff.
No, just that I wasn't
staging.
I wasn't doing it as fast as I could have. I could have done it more efficiently, which, as the German in me suggests,
there's a German in you.
I'm a big fan of efficiency.
Is there a little German in you?
Big fan of efficiency. So I appreciated the feedback.
As a Virgo as well. Super into it. I like to make one big circle. I don't want it to look like Ponce de Leon looking for the fountain of youth over there. That's what he's looking for, right?
Anyway, yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Nice historical reference. I like it.
Boom. So I'll skip to the main. So I get, there's these chips that are like protein chips, but they're keto chips because they're made out of almond flour. They're called High-Lows. They aren't sponsoring the podcast, but now they fucking should.
High-Lows.
Yeah, anyway. They're super good. They're like more dense than the Quest chips, so that you can like scoop shit out. Anyway, makes them more useful. So I see them. I'm like, hey, $7. I thought it was a twofer. I thought it was buy one, get one for $7. I was like, that's a bargain. So I throw two of them in, not thinking. Now I'm checking out.
Is that you walking?
That was me fast forwarding through all the other shit that I picked up. I didn't want to care.
Fantastic. I like it.
By the way, that's a flashback because you don't fast forward anymore. But when you used to have cassette tapes, you'd have to press forward and go, and then all of a sudden you'd stop on what you wanted to. So anyway, for the listeners, audio listeners only, I pantomimed speeding forward. Anyway, I get to the checkout line. First of all, I think she's cool. I think she's one of those cool ones because she's in the express line. She'll like, yeah, I'll take it. You're probably over a couple of items, but I won't hold it against it. It's like, I won't tell if you won't. Kind of being chuckled, whoo.
Yeah.
You know how you have to be whoo in public nowadays.
Yeah.
You can't be real anymore.
Sounds like she was pretty real with you.
She was real. She got real fast, if you ask me. So we're checking it out. She's checking it out. And she's like, oh my goodness. Do you know how much these are? I was like, yeah, I think they're like $7. She's like, oh, for chips? I was like, well, you got to pay for health. I didn't know that she didn't know. She's like, my manager's probably going to get mad at me for doing this, but this is the second time of the week that I've told people how much something costs. I was like, yeah, it's cool. Yep. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. But I thought it was buy one, get one. But hey, you know what? You got to pay to play. Yeah. So fast forward, and I see her set him down. I thought that was weird. It's like she's going to put him, she's probably going to wait for the next chip to come down. And I'm not paying attention because I'm helping bag because we don't have, anyone in line. And trying to help out. Just trying to help out. Expedite the process. So we get done. I throw the things in. She goes, hold on, let me get my manager. She brings him over. And
damn, she got her manager to come call you fat?
I was like, okay, something must have rung up wrong. So the manager's like, kind of like looks at me like, does this little number, like she's looking down at the computer and just goes like that. Like, hey, don't know you. You were just introduced to me. I'm a nice guy. Anyway, maybe we can make this work. Anyway, so she walks away and I was like, hey, by the way, did you put the chips in? Because I noticed they weren't she's like, oh, you would have liked that, wouldn't you? And it hit me all at the same time. I was like, she took my fucking chips. She said that they were $7. And then her mind, that was not worth the price of those chips. So she saved me the price of those chips. Probably because I think she said I didn't need to be eating those anyway with what I was also buying. I was like,
oh, so that's how she called you fat.
I was like, but I wanted to.
So which one bothered you more? The fact that she attacked the direct sovereignty of your dollar or that she called you fat? And
number one, to steal a phrase from Randy Marsh, I'm not poor. I think I can take a $14 hit to my fucking budget. Secondly,
He
I
is
was
poor. Don't let him fool you.
Well, we're poor.
Please support the
We're
podcast.
not poor enough that $14 is going to break me.
For only
But I'm not
$5 a month, you two can
For
help
only-
David buy some
Help
chips.
me get chips, please. No, Jesus Christ.
For one monthly subscription at the lowest
For the
tier
low
possible.
price. I feel like
you
one
can
of
help
those-
David pay for 5/7 of a
Those
bag
Christmas
of chips.
commercials are like, for the low price of 99 cents, little TikTok here
Wait.
can afford rice for his entire family.
Did I do that fraction right? There's no way to reduce 5/7. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's the correct fraction.
Oh, don't turn my story into a mathematical.
No, I'm just
equation.
saying if they support the podcast at $5 a month, they
I
can
could
buy you
get-
5/7 of a bag of chips.
You're damn right. You're damn well plus tax. So you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to put those little fractions in as well. Anyway,
We mentioned that we
a
hate the
couple
government.
of donors, and I can actually afford a bag of chips that I'm willing to eat. But no, I think it was more of the fact that like, oh, you don't. It's like, wait a second here. I thought of all the people in this line, and you yourself, and most of the people in the store, that I would be the one that would be making the decisions of who has chips and who doesn't. I start with Bertha back there. With 15 fucking Totino's frozen pizzas, maybe she doesn't need the extra side of Lay's potato chips, is all I'm saying.
And listen here, new listeners or viewers, if anybody ever challenges you on the amount of value that you get from this here podcast, just know this. David started out telling us a story thinking he got a 2-for-1 deal when it was you that got a 2-for-1 deal. You thought you were just getting a story about how he was going to be called fat, but you got a story about how he was called fat and somebody told him how to spend his money.
No,
Look at that.
Shit.
David had a rough day at the grocery store.
Moral of
and
the
we're
story.
all richer for it.
Moral of the story. Watch your ass. Protect your potato chips. Anyway.
That are made of almonds and are keto friendly because you don't want to get fat. Welcome to the life of David.
Well, or protect your potato chips from your fat ass. If you've had too much of them, your ass gets a little too wide. That's
Anyway, David, are we here talking
The more
about?
you know.
Are we talking about keto chips saving money
get
and
a-
getting fat, or are we talking
Can we
about
get a-
other stuff?
can we get a-
other stuff?
Can we get a the more you know star? Nameless faceless guy going over me for
Put it on your.
Anyway, sorry. That might be a good one. That might be my best one yet. Hold on.
That was a pretty solid one.
Okay.
We don't even need the soundboard. You
Yeah,
just-
fuck it. I'll just make all the sounds myself.
You just put little squares over there and then just put and then do the sound that
I could
you
just
know, to remind yourself.
I mean, that's an extra step.
I know, but you got to
Because-
remind yourself what they
Oh,
are.
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So,
Just so you
good
know.
point. All right. So the meme destruction. Apparently, we'll give you your moment.
All right. I don't even remember what I was laughing at, but it was.
More reps, more strokes. Apparently, 16.5 million Americans are at risk for stroke, and you'll never guess why.
Being too white supremacist?
Buying too many fucking potato chips.
I knew
Nah,
it.
that's not one of them, though. Culture Corner. Michigan is down with LGB. TQRX, Y, and Z. You know me. Anyway,
And you're probably going to be a felon if you're not.
yeah, isn't that fucking something? Epstein didn't kill himself because he didn't. More than just the paint was white at the White House this week.
Anywho.
We need to start a podcast. We need to start a podcast. Like a podcast. We talking about like politics or something. I don't know.
All right, disclaimer. This podcast was not created out of a Coke-filled bender,
We did
okay?
not snort a comical amount of cocaine to come up with
when
this
we
podcast.
came up with the idea of this podcast.
And I think you believe us because it'd be a lot more kick-ass than this if we did. I put so much work into this, and when Nameless Face, this guy's like, hey, if you want to skip it, this is where you got to skip to. It's like, it's my one
It
moment.
does. He
My
does.
one moment.
Let
a
this
week.
man live, David. Or I mean,
Ah!
I know I wasn't going to fix it.
Ah.
Nameless, faceless guy.
There
I
we
called
go.
you the other thing because, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we get it. We'll get there. We're going to get there.
We're going to get there on this.
We're going to get there.
All right.
And the main Meta Threads heads up with Twitter. I give it to you.
And with that being said, let's jump into episode 153. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 153, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/153. You can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. And you can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. I do not think we can put the meme segment on YouTube because we are talking about the C word. And although with the passage of time, that passes in time, as the great
And as we all
philosopher
know,
queen of our age,
when time passes, it
what's
passes.
her face? McFace, Vice President
Can't come
Kamala
back
Harris.
It's past.
I think YouTube is getting less draconian with its cancelings, but we're not going to push the envelope. We're on thin ice over there. So the meme segment will be over on Rumble and Odyssey, and then you can return back here for the rest of it if you are a YouTube devotee. But we recommend liking, subscribing, and sharing up over on those other platforms so you can get the whole thing all at once. So with that being said, we are...
Anyway, with that being said, you want to go back over to that YouTuble, the series of tubes, or do you have any more to harken onto this?
We're good on that one. We're back
right,
over to the YouTubes.
To the culture corner.
Yes.
Michigan is down with the LGBTQ RSTVYZ. Yeah, you know me.
So down, in fact, that if you don't fall in line with all of the preferred language of said group, you might wind up with a felony and or $5,000 fine.
That sounds suspiciously close to taking away my Second Amendment rights, Dane.
I know, right? So, as was widely reported earlier this week, and we're recording this in the first weekend of July 2023, and admittedly so, mostly...
There's the first.
It's the first weekend in July.
No, the speech. No, the Second Amendment is guns. The first one's speech, right?
It's free speech, yeah.
First one. Then why'd you agree with me?
I don't know.
Why didn't you correct with me?
I was
Why didn't you correct
I was
me, Dane?
getting ready to read into the bill.
Dane. Every now and again.
Sorry, sometimes you just over my head.
First Amendment.
But David catches himself.
I was like, wait a second. There's too many t-shirts with guns on it that say second.
So anyway, the Michigan House recently passed a law. And again, here is the process that I went throughout the week to, again, seeking truth, which I think many of the self-selected people that listen and watch this podcast already do this themselves. But if you're new here or you have friends and family, this is a good teachable moment for you to really track down all the details. So earlier in the week, admittedly, from more right-leaning news sources, I heard that the Michigan House passed a bill that made it a felony to misgender somebody. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. I've heard of them doing that in Canada. Can't believe that's happening in the US. But I thought probably, Michigan, pretty lefty, whatever. Then later in the week, I read a news article from a Michigan House representative. I didn't catch whether or not he was a sponsor of the bill, but he was somehow involved in the drafting. And he came out in defense of the bill saying that, well, right-wing media, saying that you get a felony in Michigan for misgendering somebody is just demagoguery. And that's not what the bill says and blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, hold on a second, Dane. Maybe the right is doing to this bill what the left did to the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. And they read into it something that wasn't there, but that they wanted to be there for their narrative. And so maybe they're mischaracterizing the language of the bill. So what is the next logical step?
I don't know, lawyer.
Go.
What would you do?
As we did with the Don't Say Gay bill, you go read the bill yourself. So this segment is coming to you not just as a regurgitation of whatever was on Fox News or Breitbart or whatever other right-wing media you want to refer to. This is looked into by yours truly independently and come to the conclusion that, yes, the initial reports were more accurate than the attempted Band-Aid on a bullet wound from the Michigan representative who was in support of this bill, trying to say that that's not at all what the bill does or says. And so with that being said, before we get into the language of the bill, David, did you have anything to jump in on that? Or
I was just going to say, it's just like a little, the more you know, nameless faceless guy, can I get a star going over here? Whenever you hear somebody going, oh, well, the right-wing media, or you hear the left-wing media, or you hear, oh, well, this, like if they go to the mischaracterization, that means, and we've said it before on this podcast, that usually means they don't have a foot to stand on with the actual argument. So they just go to what they know and defame where the argument came from or the person the argument came from. Simple, easy. And it's so weird that you mentioned Canada in that preface, but we'll add Canada onto the back end here where they always belong.
Yeah, that law that I was referring to in Canada, that was the cause of the Jordan Peterson meteoric rise, is that he said, listen, if you want me to call you whatever you want me to call you, I'll do it as a matter of personal respect from person to person. But if you start telling me that you're going to compel my speech under threat of criminal prosecution, that's where I draw the line. I'm not going to do that just because you are threatening me with violence from the state to do it. And, let it fester long enough, it'll come even to the land of the free and the home of the whopper. So, Michigan House Bill 4474 has this to say, quote, A person is guilty of a hate crime if that person maliciously and intentionally does any of the following to an individual based in whole or in part, this is one of the key factors, on an actual or perceived characteristic of that individual listed under subsection 2.
Dane,
regardless of the existence of any other motivating factors. So that's the lead in.
For us normies that don't read legalese every day, what did that just say?
So that says that if you are guilty of a hate crime, so the crime that you would be charged with is a hate crime.
Bear in mind that hate crimes were put in place because of Jim Crow laws and so on and so forth, and people attacking other people just solely based on race and doing horrific things to them. That's why we introduced this law, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So you're guilty of a hate crime if you maliciously and intentionally. So those are obviously just legal terms getting into your state of mind when you did it. Did you do this intentionally to...
So the state can read my mind.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yes. Although I will say that's not unique to this bill.
Or them, by the way.
All criminal law breaks down in terms of intent.
Oh, yeah, because
so for example, like
premeditated murder is worse than murder.
Right. Murder, like right in the moment.
Like I'm going to get you.
Like heat of passion.
If I say I'm going to get you.
Exactly. If you stalk somebody for a week and kill them, that is a worse form of murder than you walking in on your wife cheating on you and killing them both.
I'd say that was a good hunt.
A what?
A good hunt.
Oh.
You stalk your prey for 15 days. You know how hard it is to stalk prey for 15 days, Dane? And not be seen or them to smell you a little bit?
Well, I'm
about to find out on our first hunting excursion. Tell you what.
So anyway, you're guilty of a hate crime if you intentionally do these things. So if you do any of the following acts based on somebody's actual or perceived characteristics. That's the key part I want you to focus on.
Actual or perceived.
What are the acts that you can get in trouble for in Michigan as a hate crime for doing?
Please.
A, use force or violence on another individual. Pretty standard. I think everybody would agree you shouldn't do that to other people. Okay, that's not the problem. Subsection B, causes bodily injury to another individual. Sort of redundant to A, but still, we're all in agreement. Don't touch somebody else and hurt them physically. C, intimidate another individual. Intimidate. That's awfully broad, especially coming from the crowd that says that words are violence.
Or that math is racist.
Yeah. I think those people are intimidated by a stiff wind. So, and again, if this is actual or perceived characteristic of that individual, and then their perceived intimidation is actual or perceived, we're getting into some pretty slippery territory about what could or could not fall under this law.
Listen, as a lawyer, and probably my lawyer, I have a bedroom scenario. Does this apply to the bedroom scenario? If you get bamboozled,
sure.
Are you at least being like, if
somebody lied to you about
and lied to me,
and
then you come in, and then all of a sudden they've got a little extra packing, and you get pretty upset. Does this law still apply?
I hate that you're taking me off on this path, but I'm going to go with you for a second.
This is the hard hit
because that actually happened. It wasn't even a year ago. So basically I think it was a high school kid and very promising football star. And he goes on a couple dates.
Isn't it always?
With somebody who passes themselves off as a female, but they are in fact not. And the first date, they're
trans, to save our skin on
the
YouTube.
First date, they just kind of make out. And I believe that the non-female female
member of the LGBTQ community
performs an oral sex act on the kid. Kid starts to have suspicions somewhere along the line later. They meet up for a second date, and the kid confronts him about his gender, and then it comes out that he is a male. And I don't remember. I think the kid
biological male.
I think the kid said that the other guy attacked him first. Anyway, kid ended up killing him. Goes to trial, and his defense is this was self-defense. And one of the other overarching questions of that case was it the first act Was it rape of the kid? Because the kid would not have consented had he known, right? So there's that whole sticky point. Point is, the kid ended up getting acquitted because they did find that he acted in self-defense for killing this individual. However, his promising career in sports, his life for all intents and purposes is over.
Ask Ray Rice about that shit.
Yeah. So you ask that hypothetical question. That hypothetical question is already played out. Now, who's right or wrong in that situation? I would say the person withholding key information about, what gender you are when the other person is clearly not into that gender. So, anyway, but yes, your hypothetical is already played out.
It's like way
outside the context of this.
That's subject. My point, though. It's like you think, it can't happen to me until
it happens to you.
It happens to you, yeah. And then again, this. I remember that. You remember that to bring up a GameStop scenario. You should invest in that, by the way. AMC too.
You should not take David's advice on anything because nothing we give on this podcast should be deemed as investment advice.
We're not financiers, Anyway, I remember that video of that guy, and he literally she.
Oh yeah,
literally thought that
he. He's a he,
but claimed to be a she.
Correct.
And what made him a she, was that she put, I got that one right. She put a pink sweatshirt on and smeared some mascara on her face and then went out in public. Like barely did her hair. Just looked like some like damn near homeless person. And she wore a pink sweatshirt and the guy, sir, ma'am, and he's like, this is the second time I'm misgendered. I'm not gonna be allowed. And he's like kicking things and because they're totally rational in that moment.
Of course, always.
Just giving us we're trying to help you and be nice to you, but you have to understand that he's lived 30 years of his life probably saying every person that he recognizes as an Adam's apple is a him. He might need a couple of moments or a couple of mulligans to get it exactly right for you. So in that regard, that guy would have been committing a hate crime on camera.
By the letter of this bill, it is within the interpretation. That's the key point. Because again, what you have to remember when you're reading laws like this, and again, this is not a law. This was passed by the Michigan House. Who knows if it's going to pass the Senate or if the governor will sign it. I believe Gretchen Whitmer is still the governor of Michigan. So if it makes it to her desk, it will be signed into law. So really, the Michigan Senate is what stands in between this ridiculous nonsense becoming a law in Michigan or not.
Good luck.
But the key about reading these types of things from a legal perspective is you have to remember about prosecutorial discretion, is that prosecutors can pick and choose which cases to prosecute and which ones not to. And it often comes down to not just the evidence they have to support the crime, the alleged crime, but also their own political and personal biases. Look no further than the Trump indictment, not the one for the nuclear secrets, but the New York indictment, where it's a very colorful reading of the alleged legal violation that he made to suggest that the way he routed his payments in order to pay off Stormy Daniels to stay quiet was evidence of fraud that he could be charged with under New York law. And remember, all 34 counts against him in that case stem from that one thing, that the money that he transmitted through intermediaries or through other financial institutions to try to hide where the money was going and what it was for, 34 counts of fraud against him for doing that. For paying a porn star to be quiet about an alleged extramarital
or
affair.
Maybe just trying to keep things quiet so mama doesn't see that Papa's paying porn stars to give him the old Tuscaloosa hello.
Right.
Anyway, all I'm saying is if you think that's bad or if you think that's egregious, wait until you hear our next topic. But Dane, let's suss this one out a little bit more.
So anyway, focus on that language, right? You commit a hate crime if you intentionally do something on the part of somebody, whether it's actual or perceived characteristic that they have of themselves, if you intimidate them, and then I want to skip down to subsection E, or another thing that you can do that can get you guilty of a hate crime in Michigan is, quote, threatens by word or act to do any of the actions described under subdivisions A through D. And so that includes obviously C, which is intimidate another individual. So what are these characteristics that if you attack these perceived characteristics, what could they be? Subsection 2 tells us the actual or perceived characteristics of another individual referenced under subsection 1 include all of the following: race or color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, physical or mental disability, age, ethnicity, national origin, or other associations or affiliations. Now, finally, for the enforcement part of it, subsection 3, except as provided in subsection 4, a person who violates 1 is guilty of a felony, punishable or imprisonment for not more than 2 years, or by a fine of not more than $5,000 or both. So, in Michigan, if this becomes a law, you could be jailed for up to 2 years, or get a $5,000 fine, or possibly both. Now, I want you to keep in mind when you read two competing things, and you read one that says you can be a felon in Michigan if you misgender somebody, and then you have the proponent of the bill in Michigan saying that's a demagogic reading of right-wing media that's just trying to blah, blah, blah and shoot this thing down on political nonsense grounds or whatever. Again, remember the prosecutorial discretion. Remember how broadly, and not only this case, but many, many other cases, prosecutors can read statutes that are allegedly violated in order to fit a square peg in a round hole and prosecute somebody for something. And then keep in mind that the same people who happen to be of the same political persuasion that would pass such a bill as this are also the same people who engage in actual violence and or destruction of property all over college campuses in America because somebody is speaking mean words. And they say that words are the same as violence. Does that group sound like they're going to be really, really tight with their language about whether or not they're intimidated by what you have to say? If they can characterize
They can say
you
silence.
misgendering them as intimidating them, then under this bill, if it's passed into law, you can be guilty of a hate crime in Michigan. That is not an unreasonable reading of this in any way, shape, or form.
They say, this side again, that silence is violence. So you can't even shut the fuck up Fridays and get away with anything. Like, it's egregious. But again, all these machinations aside, at the end of the day, this is another attack on free speech. This is all words. This is just saying words that offend somebody else. How many times, speaking of strokes, on our meme destruction, how many people have died of hurt feelings?
Last time I checked, none.
I don't think it's a medical condition. I don't think you can really equate it to a physical damage per se. In fact, I'd say hurt feelings lead to a lot of really, really successful outcomes. You think any of these billionaires would have gone on to be billionaires if some hot little stuff would have just said, yeah, I'll give him a pity blowjob? No, they're like, no, you're gross. Get away from me. It's like, oh, okay. Fine, fuck it. I'm going to sell books. I'm going to sell the most books that's ever been sold. And I'm going to show you, and I'm going to make the biggest corporate conglomeration. You should have sucked my dick. And now I'm a billionaire. So that's like, it's... So let's
David's take
there.
on the origin story of Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you. If you needed to be led there. My whole point being is that why stop there, Dane? Let's make laws that girls can't shut down any drink bought for them, and every drink bought for them is a contract, if they drink it, that they have to have at least one sexual engagement with the person that bought that drink for them. Because if they don't, Dane, that person will become offended. And God knows we can't have anybody that's offended in this country ever.
Yeah, because
Just
the person
saying.
who bought the drink has a perceived characteristic as a ladies' man.
Yeah.
And so if you decide to attack that perceived characteristic, you're intimidating him. You're challenging his manhood, his masculinity.
He is Rico Suave.
Now, again, for you ultra serious, take everything and hang us from the banners, ready to cancel us, saying that, oh my God, these guys are coming out in support of, date rape or whatever the case may be.
Sure, why not?
What we're saying is as absurd as that example is, it is equally as absurd to say that misgendering somebody, and again, that is one of the categories under subsection 2E, gender identity or expression. If somebody has a perceived gender identity different than what you refer to them as,
or reality,
and they take that as malicious or intentional intimidation of them,
well, you just saying words,
then you're guilty of a hate crime in Michigan. And that's absurd. That's a crazy world that none of us want to live in. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say none of us. A very, very micro percentage of the population is super happy about this, and everybody else that's going along to get along is just useful idiots for that, tyrannical micro percentage. But the point is that this is not the direction that a free society should ever want to go, of criminalizing speech in this type of way, creating felons out of, and again, for the left that wants to talk about, and again, not that every felony takes away your right to vote, but that is one of the criteria in many states, voter laws, is that if you are a felon, you lose the right to vote. I don't know what the status of that is in Michigan, but the point is that for the side of the political spectrum that wants everybody to vote at all costs, no matter what, assuming that there is some sort of penalty on the franchise of the vote for having a felony, this seems to be going in the wrong direction. Unless, of course, this same group wanted to disenfranchise the people who would fall under prosecution of this law. Basically, right-wingers or anybody that doesn't want to buy in to the gender delusion that is overtaking the entire country.
Pretty passive-aggressive.
I mean, I don't know if that's their aim. I don't particularly care. But I know that when they come out and try to say, oh, well, that's just right-wing demagoguery, and that's not what the bill says at all, when they spent as much time as we spent talking about how they disingenuously read into things that weren't even in the quote-unquote don't say gay bill, and yet when theirs has holes so big you could drive a legal truck through them to prosecute people for it, and they try to come out and be indignant and say that's not what the bill says. I mean, sir, we can read, and we're not stupid. So that is what your bill says. And mark our word that if this becomes law, somebody will be prosecuted in Michigan for doing exactly this. And then what? I guess you're just going to say that was a happy accident? I don't know. I don't know what leg you're going to have to stand on, but I guess you'll keep protesting all the way to the grave.
And just to put a bow on it, how much longer are we going to hear from the side that screams democracy? We need to protect our democracy. We can't elect this other person because he's a threat to our democracy. We need to keep democracy in its altar because democracy is the democracy way of going forward with democracy. How often and how much longer are we going to let minorities as small as 1%, not saying in general, like African-American, Chinese, and so on and so forth, but like minorities as the LGBTQ community, dictate edicts upon law? They are a small fraction of our population, but for some reason they acquire 100% protection. What other goddamn minority has 100% protection in this country, by the way? But the whole point of a democracy is majority rule. This is what's happening. You either fall in line or you get the fuck out. That's democracy, is it not? We voted. The majority has this view, and we move on. When did it become 0.1 of 1% gets to dictate what everyone should be doing in a state or a country?
Well, because, and they will say, right, this passed the Michigan House. So even if every Republican dissented, but the majority of Michigan voters elected all of the Democrats that are in the Michigan House that voted this, that is the majority.
But they're protecting 1%.
Okay, but I mean, they'll still say,
when are they going to start writing laws that protect the African American community in the Chicago city?
right.
That's my say. I think that that's
Right,
a
of
little more
course.
pressing than saying something that hurts somebody's feelings.
Of course.
Am I wrong?
No,
Sorry.
agreed. But again, they will say, and this is why, this is just another example. This isn't WMD podcast coming out in favor of democracy, despite all the things that we've said negatively about it in the past. But this is just another example, as we've talked about on the podcast before, is that the democracy that these people, and I mean, the ones who wrap themselves in the flag and say that everything that they're doing is in service of protecting democracy, right? Got to keep Trump out of the White House to save democracy. Got to shut down Joe Rogan to save democracy. Got to, shut down RFK to save democracy, like those people. And again, that spans the entire political spectrum. For every, AOC that, claims she's always defending democracy, there's a Liz Cheney on the right that says she's doing the exact same thing. And really what it is, it's in service of the establishment regime that they happen to be either in control of or, buddied up close to. That's what it means. Whenever you hear somebody say, we need to save democracy, that's what it means. I'm either in the regime or I'm in service to my betters in it.
Or
That's
democracy's in my way.
Yeah, there's no higher ideal for them that they're, standing on some, shining city on a hill, looking down and just trying to take care of the rest of us plebeians. That's not what it is. But anyway, this is just another example pointing out David's point about how small of a population that this is allegedly trying to protect by criminalizing the free speech of everybody else. This is just another example that democracy is nothing but a farce and that your vote doesn't matter. They're not legislating on behalf of you and in your best interest. They are more than happy to throw you in jail for up to 2 years and or fine you $5,000 if somebody perceives themselves as a different gender and takes you misgendering them as intimidation. That's it. That's as simple as we can put that bill, soon to be law in Michigan if it passes the Senate or the Michigan Senate. So again, this should have been nipped in the bud when it happened to Jordan Peterson in Canada. And to be sure, there was a global, because he is a global phenomenon now because of that whole situation. This should have been nipped in the bud then. It wasn't. And so now we're dealing with it here in the United States where we allegedly have a First Amendment that still means for something, still stands for something. Ask me to explain what it stands for in light of stuff like this. I have no clue. I don't have any idea what free speech is anymore, and nobody else does either, because it's just whatever sort of jelly they can hammer to a wall today to let them get away with whatever it is they want to do to curtail it for this reason, but not curtail it for that reason. So your guess is as good as mine as what free speech is anymore, because for all of the wailing and gnashing of teeth about private company can do what it wants with all of the free speech violations all throughout COVID, this is direct government action. How are you going to wiggle out of this one? I mean, it'll be challenged in the courts, and we'll see what the courts have to say, if it does pass into law. But they're going to have to prosecute somebody under it first in order for that person to have standing so that it can be challenged. But it'll happen. It'll happen because there is some super, super left-wing prosecutor, probably in Detroit or elsewhere in Michigan, who, when somebody comes in and says, he misgendered me and I felt maliciously intimidated, that person is going to run to the banners trying to charge somebody with a hate crime under this law, if it becomes a law. It's going to happen. Just, refer back to episode 153 for another segment of We Told You So.
Well, that segment is the reason why I couldn't afford the $14 potato chips at the beginning of this this whole Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast, because I meant to put a bow on it and I only opened up another Pandora's box.
Yeah.
So anyway, this 30-minute episode is smashed past that record-breaking mark.
2 segments to go. We're an hour in.
Hey, we're going to skip right through the next 2. Anyway, Epstein.
But now's the most fun one of the whole episode. We should have saved some dry powder for this one.
Some juice. Yeah, some of that great ideas. Like, let's make shirts, let's make t-shirts, like a big old hat that says, anyway, Epstein didn't kill himself. More than just paint was white at the White House this weekend. Or this week.
Yeah.
Probably the weekend, and I just bled over into the week. Usually you save that kind of activity for the weekend and then like recover during the week.
Somebody took the name Whitehouse a little too seriously.
On the nose. They went a little Tony Montana. It helps you sleep, okay? Do it your job, all right? Frank, you're a piece of shit, man.
Anyway, listen, this is one of those...
Scarface aside.
This is one of those guilty pleasure topics that, yes, in the grand scheme of all world events, does it deserve coverage? Probably not. But can David and I avoid this delicious red meat of a story? Absolutely not. I mean, at the end of the day, we are fallible.
Can you please not phrase it like that?
What? Why?
This delicious red meat?
Yeah. You never heard of like throwing red meat to your base? You never heard of that term phrase?
I've heard of it, but
that's what I'm talking about.
Phraseology that you used.
Anyway,
delicious red meat.
The story that is our guilty pleasure for the week in the Epstein segment is the cocaine found inside the White House.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
As theories abounded, some more credible than others, the theories that suggested that it was probably
one of those White House staffers, those little rapscallions, those little knuckleheads.
A relative of the commander-in-chief, which, I mean, come on, people. Let's be honest. If you go into a group of 10 people and one of them is not only a known crackhead, but repeatedly films himself doing it.
With prostitutes. I revert back to the culture corner of Trump being indicted for paying prostitutes in a certain way. This guy takes pictures with them, snorts coke off their ass, and has an illegal gun or a gun that he's not allowed to have in possession with pictures with prostitutes.
Yeah. Now, listen, if you have 10 people and one person has that history, and yes, that person has assured you many times since then that they're reformed and they got clean and they don't do that anymore.
I don't need that. I just need another $20 to make it through the week. You know what I'm saying?
I am here to give you license and to tell you, you are not a bad person if something like that is found, illicit substance is found, and you look at that group of 10 people and you start to say, my most likely suspect is you. That doesn't make you a bad person, okay? You might not be correct, and maybe the investigation will reveal it was one of the other 9 people, but you're not a bad person for looking at that person first.
Maybe the guy that pissed his pants and is still grinding his teeth incessantly might have had something to do with it. I don't want to say anything.
Which, by the way, I don't remember if it was a day or hours after this was found, but it was the 4th of July celebration and the first family was up on the balcony and, you know, fireworks going off. And there is some footage of Hunter doing some stuff and a little bit like...
a little tweaky?
He looked a little tweaky.
He's a little on the edge.
He looked a little tweaky.
Coming up with some ideas for podcasts, was
you? Now, the funny part about this, well, yeah, okay, let's get to the funny part. So the funny part, earlier in the week, it was a mysterious white substance was found in the White House on Sunday. So Sunday was what? 2 days before 4th of July. So 2 days before the...
A mysterious white substance that was lined with a credit card laying next to it into 7 consecutive lines of equal distribution. We had no idea what it was. And it seemed to have been right there next to a credit card and a handgun for prostitution.
Now, it was it was rather quickly.
Not that the handgun was for prostitution. I meant the credit card was for prostitution. Because there's a little note that said for prostitution written on it.
Some real sleuthing that was done by the Secret Service to figure all this out.
I don't know where this came from. We'll get to the bottom of it.
Now,
Capitan.
Early in the week, it was, hey, strange substance found in a bag. Relatively quickly, they determined it was cocaine. And then we had some hard-hitting, top-of-the-line journalism done by none other than Harry Sisson. And if you don't know who Harry Sisson is, good on you. He's some little, 20-year-old punk over on TikTok that's got 600-some thousand followers. And he's I don't know what he claims to be, some sort of Gen Z rallier for the left. And he's like his Twitter just oozes with anti-Trump and pro-Biden. He's one of those. Anyway, Harry Sisson releases
real fun to have a beer with.
A tweet the day after Treason Day on July 5th.
Oh, bless your heart.
And he says, quote, "So the cocaine found in the West Wing was actually found in a cubby where visitors leave their possessions before a tour. All of the Republicans who baselessly attacked Hunter owe the Biden family apology."
I'm sorry, does Hunter live at the White House?
No, but has carte blanche to come and go when he wishes.
But he would be a visitor.
Yes, but that's not even.
Let's not go that far.
Okay, well, anyway, that's what Harry has to say, right?
Harry.
The hard-hitting journalism of Harry.
Hard-hitting Harry.
Well, it comes out later in the week, as in, like, what's the date of this article? Oh, I don't have the date at the top. Oh, yes, the very next day. Sorry.
Moments later.
July 6th.
The darkest day in American history.
And MSNBC host was...
Actually...
Yes.
I'm sorry, you're the history buff. Wasn't that Normandy?
What?
Or was that June 6th?
What are you talking about?
Normandy. The landing at Normandy.
Yes, June 6th.
Ah, fuck. Anyway, I was making a January 6th joke. Then I thought I actually made a real joke.
Joe's the one who confused January and June.
No, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's serious.
David, you're making us look bad if we're making us look like Joe.
Oh, listen, I'm not smoking crack on my podcast.
So not a day after Harry comes out saying that the Biden family is owed a massive apology for this cocaine, it's actually found out that the cocaine was not in a cubbyhole easily accessible by White House tourists, but was actually found near the Situation Room in the White House, which is not, available for anybody who's anybody to just walk by and leave a bag of cocaine. Because listen, I've never done a White House tour, but I know that the first thing on my checklist to pack when I go on my White House tour is my bag of cocaine. Because in all of the years that there's been White House tours, all of the years that didn't have a first son with a massive crack/cocaine problem, all of those years, there were tons of White House tours, and miraculously, nobody dropped a bag of coke. And next thing you know, you got a president with a son who does coke and or crack on camera hundreds of times, and you find some coke in the White House. Now, correlation is not causation. But again, if he becomes your number one suspect in this investigation, you're not a bad person. And despite Harry Sisson's protestations that you owe the Biden family an apology, I can assure you that you do not.
Just a quick question. If you might have done business dealings with China for information on this, not even information, if you were doing business dealings with China, saying the big guy, and your name was Donald Trump Jr., how far do you think he would have gotten?
Oh, yeah, no, he would have been already tarred and feathered.
Just say they found some suspect powder in Donald J. Trump's. You said it was the action room or
the situation room. Near the situation.
Well, I got confused. Maybe it was Wolf Blitzer's. Maybe Wolf Blitzer left his.
It wasn't Wolf's situation room.
Oh, damn it. So anyway, do you think they'd ask questions, or there'd be a mysterious substance, or that there'd be all this arbitrage around it to say, like, well, you can't blame anybody for, everybody likes to party, right? Moreover, I'd actually be more relieved if it was Biden's cocaine, because at least dude likes to party and he's getting up. That would explain all the rants. That would explain all of his fucking mistalks. Like, with a pony-faced horny but to the thing, and I was a minor in West Virginia, and my father fought the Vietnam War, and I was the top of my class at Harvard, and I didn't even go there. I'm serious. It's like, that's cocaine. I could be, okay, cool. He's not senilic. He's just partying. I would take comfort in all those other things. But when we're protecting democracy, and there's literally a dude willing to bring coke into the White House, what do you think they think of you? Did you ever bring coke into the White House? I know a lot of people went into the White House, were shepherded through the White House, put their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk in the White House, or in Capitol Hill, excuse me. I know all those people got tracked down via their phones and via facial recognition. I know that happened. Where's that at now? Why is this still a mystery? We should have cameras all over the White House right now. It's the most important building in the United States, is it not? It's harboring the most important person in the United States. So why can't we get facial recognition on somebody that brought cocaine into the White House?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know about all the technical capabilities of the White House, but it is one of the most secure places on the planet. So I would venture to say, and who knows, maybe this is tinfoil hat, Dane. I would venture to say that they knew from the second they found the bag, they knew exactly who did it. And the fact that
just like all of us did.
Exactly. And the fact that there's been a quote unquote week-long investigation that I think the most recent reports is supposed to wrap up on Monday, which is what, July 8th or 9th, something like that. That's when the investigation is supposed to conclude, is that they didn't need a week. And whoever, they're going to come to one of two conclusions. Either it's inconclusive, we didn't get the guy's face, which is complete bullshit, or some, low-level staffer is going to take the fall. And again, as we say all the time, government, and especially the ingrained families that are in the upper echelons that run it, they are nothing if not tantamount to the mob. They are. They're just a mob with a monopoly on violence. And
they're an exclusive club, and guess what?
Just like the mob has Fall Guys,
you're not in it.
They do too. So listen, it doesn't really matter so much what the investigation pulls out of this. It's just that, again, as David was saying, it all matters who you know. I know that's not some shocking revelation that you're just now learning on W&D podcast, but this has echoes all throughout American policy, both domestic and foreign, is that you can do pretty much whatever you want, up to and including exterminating millions of people off the face of this planet for financial gain, Dick Cheney, and nothing's going to happen to you. Nothing at all.
It was a suicide in the middle of a field that a person has never been to, with an extension cord wrapped around his throat and a table set up and a shotgun blast to his chest.
Now that's Clinton related, not Dick Cheney, but
no, it was suicide. This is why it's the Epstein thing. Epstein hung himself. Well, the cameras went off, and both the guards that were on round-the-clock duty to make sure he didn't kill himself both fell asleep at the same time. And a huge gorilla of a motherfucker was supposed to be in there with him. It was his cellmate.
Yeah.
Okay. All that being said, Dane, I think the MJ quote rings best. Is all I got to say is that they don't really care about us.
That's true.
So the main topic is that Meta threads. Oh, what a catchy fuck. Is Meta ever going to figure it out? Like, Meta was such a fucking shitty name, so derivative, and explained nothing about what it's doing, and it's flailed since it's been put into the theater. And now it's going to compete with Twitter with its threads.
Yeah. Threads is now, I want to say, the 5th platform that is more or less a direct competitor with Twitter. I think Threads is not, and it hasn't launched yet. It's just been launched within the last few weeks. The fact that it is going to be launched was just announced within the last couple of weeks. I don't know when its exact launch date is.
That's a hard sentence.
I know.
It's exact.
It's exact. Yeah. Could have chosen a different formulation of words there, but this is the next attempt of, and remember, keep this in mind as we discuss this topic. What did we say at the time that the Elon takeover of Twitter happened, and why he instantly went from, darling of climate change, he's saving the world with his electric vehicles and blah, 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 to this ultra evil guy who needs to be run out of society and sent up on one of them. It's almost like they
forgot they loved him at one point.
That's the way these
people just like switch on a dime when they're, to say useful idiots is to be kind to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they never had the thought that he was a great guy to begin with.
Of course
and
not.
Didn't even pause for a second to go, well, if he was a great guy yesterday and then all of a sudden I have to hate him today, what happened within those 2 moments that changed him from
Of course not,
hero to villain.
because the totalitarian mindset, and yes, if you become a leader of a totalitarian nation like Stalin, then you get to actually act out on all of your murderous fantasies. But if you don't achieve that level, you can still have the totalitarian mindset. And if nothing characterizes the political progressive left more than anything, it is totalitarianism. And so the reason why they have the memory of a goldfish when they used to like somebody who they perceived as if not exactly in line with their program, at least helpful for it, the reason why they can forget that so quickly is because the totalitarian mindset is based on what is your service to the regime. If you help me in one way, shape, or form, I will tolerate you.
Correction,
if
Dave.
you do not, I will kill you. Or in this case, run you out of society.
If my lords tell me that you're helping me, I'll appreciate you. If my lords tell me that you're afflicting me, I'll hate you with vitriol.
Yeah.
And then fun side story before you jump back in. A fun little thing you can do with all these lefties or whatever you want. If you say that like Twitter is a nice place till Elon took it over, it's like, oh well, you liked his vehicles before, right? And then just kind of like make them remember that they used to suck his South African cock because he was going to solve what do they call it? Global warming with his
climate change. It's not global warming.
Excuse me. It's not global warming anymore. But anyway, because the Earth is actually cool. It's fun. It's a fun thing to play just to like give them a little jab and make him like throw them off their trail of just following things. Like, oh, but he made SpaceX. Oh, good. Yeah, okay. But you hate him now. Good.
So anyway, if you'll remember what we said about it at the time is the reason why they lost their minds so bad about his takeover of Twitter is because if you are going to be a totalitarian regime, it's in the name totalitarian. You have to control everything in total. You not only have to control everything on the back end in terms of the policy that you actually implement in terms of being a tyrant, but you also have to control the propaganda on the front end so that you're not met with immediate resistance when you do things that harm the vast majority of the population. And one of the primary nodes of control from a propaganda and narrative standpoint was and remains Twitter. Because it is one of the few places with its
didn't used to be
with its microblogging setup is that users can say virtually whatever they want, and information doesn't have to go through all of these intermediaries to be filtered. And without the filters, they lose narrative control rather quickly. And so, yes, they had Facebook and they had the mainstream media and they had Hollywood and they had, your alphabet soup agencies, both international in terms of WHO and national in terms of CDC and everything else. They had control of the narrative all the way across the board. And they lost one node. They lost the Twitter node. And it was Armageddon for these people. And since then, you've seen an explosion. There are now 5 Twitter competitors. And listen, from David and I's perspective, let the free market win. If Twitter's not doing it right and somebody can do it better, all more power to them. Come in, outcompete them, get the users, and Twitter goes out of business. We don't care. But we find the timing of the Twitter competitors, the fact that there was nobody coming out of the woodworks before Elon's purchase, and now they all are. And then with Meta, the parent company that owns Facebook and Instagram, WhatsApp, and a few other applications, with Meta now throwing its hat in the ring with its new Twitter competitor called Threads, the whole debate over privacy and free speech and all that kind of stuff just got kicked up a notch because Meta is kind of the poster child for public-private collusion to propagandize the people, to control the narrative.
Don't forget, Zuckerberg went on the JRE and basically admitted the FBI told him to hush the laptop story.
Yeah, and he had no qualms with doing that because he's in service of the regime.
But then again, too, it's always interesting in these certain circumstances, just to speak on like a social and psychological level. It's always interesting that the people that have the most to lose, that might have been doing something wrong, say the least in these episodes, say the least in these series of events. But what has Elon been doing? He's been granting interviews. He hasn't been hidden. He's been out in the public. He's explained ad nauseum why he did what he did. He threw billions of dollars to acquire a company to preserve the First Amendment. That was his statement. And every interview he does after that, he follows those lines. It's not because it's a punchline. It's not because it's like what he's directed to say. It's because it's what he did. Now, is he eccentric? Of course. He's making the Boring Company. He does weird shit. He made a flamethrower just to say, don't buy this shit on my website, and people bought it anyway. So like, he's eccentric. Cool. Awesome. I like that. It's communicable. What happened on the left, or what happened from the government's perspective? They lost control of a node, like Dane said earlier. What did they do? They just VMized him. Will they come out in public and debate him? No. He went on multiple interviews saying like, yeah, everything we thought was happening at Twitter was happening. Oh, and it was worse. The FBI was involved. The government was, we have emails. We have all the DMs that they thought were totally secure, but definitely weren't. Like, we have all these interchanges in between government officials and people directing Twitter higher ups how to run it and what to do with it. If that's not voter manipulation, I don't know what is. But all that being said, it goes straight back to the aliens thing. We were so
like George of Tuscaloosa, like aliens.
The Anunnaki. Anyway, like we were so fried from COVID that I feel like they just threw us a bone and we could go, like, we were so fried with being afraid of our own shadow during COVID that they came out at the end of it and was, oh, by the way, we found aliens. We're like, okay. Can you make eggs more priceable? I don't know. Can you do anything that helps us at all, please? They're like, nah, not really. Bye anyway. And then they're like, oh, by the way, hate Elon because he just bought one of the social media platforms. Bye. Like, the main story is that Elon got a hold of Twitter and said that it was being manipulated through in and throughout. But just like the Epstein thing, which this was a big contention between the two of us, whether it be Epstein or not. It's like when the Epstein documentary came out, all it was focusing on was the women that got taken advantage of. And I'm not going to go into this on this podcast, but the main story became the women and how they were affected. Not the fact that major global leaders were compromised by one dude and might be able to be bent to the will of this one dude. That's the main story. And then that one dude that was bending everyone else to the will got murdered. He didn't suicide himself. He got murdered.
He wasn't the ringleader, so who was he answering to?
Exactly. Like that story had fucking layers. But again, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed with the public. Like
that's the understatement of the century.
The main story's here, and they go, jingle keys, titties. Oh, they were taken advantage of. Like, okay. Like, what are you doing? This is your objective. You are trying to find out the people that are manipulating you, and then all of a sudden they go, people were misogynized. Like, what about the downtrodden? You're the downtrodden, you stupid son of a bitch. And all they're doing is going, don't pay attention to that. Here's some jingled keys. Like, Jesus Christ, just this will be my last phrase on this topic, and I'll leave it over to you, Dane. It's just be better. Just focus on what the real story is, and don't get thrown off by whatever they say today. Because guess what? Record today and then watch that shit before what they say tomorrow. And it will be completely overturned, diverse, and you'll be like, oh my God, They don't care about what they're saying. They're just trying to tell me what I need to regurgitate at the waterhole today because they don't respect me enough to treat me as an adult human in this society. That's it. That's why Hunter Biden brought cocaine to the fucking White House. Because like, what are they going to do? Probably grab his nuts during the fucking fireworks display while he was high on coke and coming up with great t-shirt ideas. I don't know. But all I'm saying is, like, they don't respect you and they placate you constantly and you don't hold them accountable for it. So be better, hold them accountable for it, and make shit like this just fucking non-existent anymore. I don't know.
And if all of that was not enough of a PSA to tell you to stay as far away from Threads as possible, here is a little bit of language from the Threads terms of service. Quote, your Threads profile is part of your Instagram account and may be deleted at any time by deleting your Instagram account. So yeah, if you're reading that correctly, if you create a Threads profile, you can't delete the Threads profile unless you also want to delete your Instagram. Now, maybe that's a good idea and you think, fuck Meta and everything that they touch with their, greedy little tentacles, and I'm not going to have anything to do with them. I have gone round and round about that for a long time with myself. The one reason...
But them chicks is too hot.
The one reason I'm still on Facebook and Instagram is I still use them as news aggregators is because they still are good for at least that. And yes, I use Twitter for the same purpose. But basically, I follow a lot of pages that are, if not already on their 4th or 5th ban, they're on the verge of being banned, who share articles and sources and information from places outside of whatever your establishment media mouthpieces want you to think on a subject. And I, read a wide variety of them to figure out what I think is the closest approximation of the truth. So that's why I don't want to give up Facebook or Instagram, is because they are helpful news aggregators for me because it lets me curate my news feed. And yes, I can have CNN and I can have Fox, but then I can also follow the Ron Paul Institute for Prosperity, for Peace and Prosperity. I can also follow Mises.org. I can also follow all of these other sources like the Leading Report. I can follow a lot of other things to say, okay, here's what CNN has to say on the topic. Here's what Fox has to say. And here's what Mises.org has to say. And then come to my own conclusions. And because I can pick that, who I follow and all that kind of stuff, it is helpful in that regard. But heed the advice of the Eagles in Hotel California. You can check in anytime you like, but you can never leave. You're not going to walk away from Threads unless you also want to get rid of Instagram. So that's a little nugget of terms of service there for you. So. If you were even considering going to Threads, I sincerely hope this is a miserable flop because it is such a pathetically transparent attempt by the establishment that lost control of the Twitter node, trying to get back every little aspect of it can, but it's clearly not working. They're now on their 5th attempt. It's not working.
You remember Zune?
Zune, no.
Yeah, of course you don't. Because that was the MP3 player that was competitive with the iPod at the time.
What, did iPod just buy him or something?
No, they never even hit the fucking right amount of people. Like, that's my point. It's like, how many people have joined Meta? How many people are going, how many youthful people are joining Facebook? Like, Facebook is for, like, I think our age, as much as it hurts me to say, and up. Like, all the youths are not joining Facebook. They're not. They'll be on Instagram, and even that's failing. And most of them are on TikTok,
right?
Which is why I just don't see this being even remotely
right. But it's not. It's not supposed to be a competitor with TikTok in the sense in the
maybe they'll get pharmaceutical backing, which will keep them alive, like CNN.
It's not supposed to compete with newer platforms that, yes, younger generations are gravitating towards, like TikTok. It is supposed to get market share from Twitter and basically starve Twitter out. Because if you remember, after the Elon takeover, the first big hurdle that they had to get over is the loss of ad revenue, because being associated with a white supremacist like Elon, big companies formerly
he's African American,
formerly advertised on Twitter outside of his control, now was not, that funding going into Twitter was now being withdrawn. So this is just another attempt. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. Is if they can pull a little bit more eyeballs away from Twitter, then they can starve the ad revenue even more. And this is why, even though we personally have not signed up for it yet, this is why Elon's Twitter Blue thing, where you pay whatever it is, $8 a month, that is a key component to maintaining privacy and protecting free speech, because it's now no longer reliant on these woke corporations that will go wherever their betters lead them. Is that if the money is coming straight from the user base, a la us asking you shamelessly for money every month.
Oh God.
That's how we survive, is by having the supporters that are willing to help us continue perpetuating our message. So will Twitter get to a critical mass of monthly subscribers that they don't have to rely on that ad revenue?
I hope so.
That would be good. And, we'll cross that bridge sometime soon, too, and maybe throw our hats in the ring and buy Twitter Blue. But, for right now, it just has to withstand these onslaughts from all these different competitors just trying to grope at its market share. Would we even be surprised if we know the Meta version is, but if all 5 of these different Twitter competitors are all 5 heads from the same snake?
The thing about the government, and when there's a hegemony that's trying to dethrone something that's actually legitimate, is they can't come up with their own ideas. They have to totally rely on the person that's innovating to come up with it, and then they just have to chuck a lot of money to try to outperform it. But the innovators are always going to have the head start. They're always going to be ahead, and that's what Elon is. He's name a government cabinet official that is smarter than Elon Musk. I'll wait a long time.
Yeah.
I'll wait a long time. You're not going to out-innovate the guy that's landing rockets on Mars already.
Well, not landing rockets on Mars. But
you know what? I'm hyperbolic.
He is landing them back on Earth and reusing them.
And then putting them right back down. Hey, we don't have to waste millions of dollars each time. Bye.
Which NASA blew that lead by about 5 or 6 decades in terms of the technology.
He did what NASA did in 100 years in 10. So if you want to go 10x with Elon, good luck. That was a government-funded program. He's outperforming you with 10 years of starting a company.
To be fair, SpaceX and some of his other endeavors have benefited heavily from government subsidies,
but he'd be dumb. That's like the Trump thing. I benefited from the same tax breaks that you get. Look at her tax returns. It's not good. Everyone's saying it's real bad. So I gotta tell you.
It is true. You would be kneecapping yourself in the market. Listen, until there is a total separation of market and state, as there should be,
just like church and state,
then yeah, for somebody like Elon to say, I'm going to reject this money while your competitors are just engorged on it, doesn't make a whole lot of business sense. But from a principled libertarian perspective, that's why, we got to at least call balls and strikes and say fair is fair, is that him accepting that money is still accepting that.
So to this point.
Anyway, yes.
Until we live in the utopia, we got to live with the better of the worst and the worst of the better. We live in the gray, brother. There's nothing that's totally
fair. That's the same argument they say for lesser of two evils with voting. So
I understand, but if you gotta get that stuff to compete with everyone else, but you're going to stand on your moral principles, good luck. I hope your moral principles suit you when your entire kingdom is burning. So all I'm saying is that there is very much humanity within all of this. But what I will say is that I'm hoping that humanity sides with the light rather than the dark on this particular stratum. And all it takes is this, like Dane was saying, the slightest modicum of look at them look at him, and then look at the tertiary people that are outside. Look at the CNN, look at the Fox, and then look at the independent media. And then decide for yourself. And then go with what your gut says. Because you're a smart person. If you're watching this podcast, all three of you, I gotta imagine you got an IQ above room temperature, as Dane likes to say. So all you have to do is just take in all the information, and it's pretty easy. In 5-minute clips. I'm not asking more than that. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes on 3 other independent
An hour
medias.
and a half here, you know.
So 5 minutes, 3 independent medias, 5 minutes on CNN and Fox News. What is that? That's 25 minutes. That's a half an hour a week to come up with your standpoint on one issue. That's not that much if you want to delve into this realm. Now, if you want to be like those people that I was talking about that are placated, that they don't respect, do you, boo-boo. But all I'll say is I hope that Meta fails just as, or the threads fail just as supremely as Meta failed before it.
Yeah. You know, well, I digress. Anyway,
it would have been another 25 minutes, wouldn't it?
We're already an hour and a half in. So with that being said,
they're already here.
You all can find episode 153 at wmdpodcast.com/153. You can get the podcast audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Obviously, if you're here at the end of the YouTube version, you know that you weren't able to get the meme segment, but you know, you can get over on Rumble and Odyssey. So like, subscribe, and share over there.
Or on the podcast.
And you should do that on every platform you follow us on. Like, subscribe, share, comment, help us out with the algorithm, get us pushed out to more people. That is the free way that you can support the show. If you're going to be like David and shudder at the thought of giving us money each month.
I don't like baking.
You can at least like, subscribe, and share. And,
I don't like baking.
Comment. So, well, listen, David, we are beggars. We can't be choosers. You can also link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can link up with us for $5 a month of support over on our private members only Facebook page. You can also get us on Tribel and Float. I think Tribel is another one of those Twitter competitors. I haven't checked in with Tribel recently. Don't know how good
I don't
or
think
bad
most people
they're doing.
do, actually. But anyway.
So there's that. And
number?
Yeah. Those. Oh, yes. The number to text if you have not already. And if you are a longtime listener and you have not done this already, shame. But the
Not
text
shame.
number is...
Not shame. We don't have a bell.
Is 610-596-WMDP or 610-596-9637. That is the automated text service for this here podcast, where you will get updates. You'll get notifications. You got one just the other day when episode 152 dropped. You'll get notifications like that. You'll from time to time get discount codes on stuff over at the merch store. And we got some stuff cooking up for you. We got some cool things going in the merch store that you might want to check out. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not, but hey, jump in those comment sections on any video or whatever and say, hey guys, I think this shirt sucks, or it's great, do more of this, or here's how you can do it better. We like the feedback from the memes. So with that being said, we'll see you next week on 154.
And before we go, I've got a little side note because I got reprimanded for not even knowing that this existed at the beginning of the week. There's also a WMD podcast clips that if you can't digest all of our 90-minute episodes in one go, you can get little segments of our episodes in little digestible quantities every week. So we choose the topics that are most poignant for that week, and then we put it out immediately. Sound quality is a little different than what's on the actual podcast. If you want great sound quality, come over here and listen to it on Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast. But if you just want, like, let me get what those guys have to say on a topic that's really poignant right now, WMD clips on WMDP clips?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, WMDP clips. Yeah. It'll be affiliated with us. Anyway, check that out. Give us support, give us likes, share it, do all the things that Dane said before. And until then, guys, stay safe. But more importantly, stay free.